Hello, this is David Waumsley here with a slightly different type of Beaver Builder interview. These ones I'm calling the Beaver Builder website Stripdown, as I'm asking various Beaver Builder users through the magic of screencasting to show us one of their projects. We're going to get a privileged peek into the front and back end of these sites, what software was used, how they overcome certain challenges. Obviously, it's quite a daunting thing to show your work before your peers, so I'm hoping that viewers will be supportive and not just go looking for flaws. But in this first one, I talked to a very brave Hugues Audouard from eharwebdesign.com in the UK, who played a large part in me coming up with this idea. The sound recording isn't quite as good as it should be, but I hope you're going to enjoy it as much as I did, and I'll see you on the other side. Bye-bye. Hugues, hello, how are you?
Hey. Hi, David.
We've been chatting for quite a while now, so we don't know how we're going to start this new thing that we're doing here, where it's show and tell. In fact, I meant to speak to you before about whether show and tell should be the name for what we're doing. Should it be Beaver Builder website Stripdown or something?
Stripdown, I like that.
It sounds kind of more dynamic, doesn't it? You set yourself up for this, because in the Beaver Builder group you were talking about a site that you were working on, and you said you would come back and tell folks how it went and what you used on it. So I just nabbed you for my new idea. So that's how you've come to be doing this live.
Yeah, there's a lesson in kind of thinking through it before you post something, what you're opening yourself up for.
So I've stolen your idea, really. Anyway, so let's, for the people who are watching and listening to this, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and you've got your website up at the moment and how you work.
Okay, well, I've been working with WordPress now for a couple of years. I had my epiphany with Beaver Builder about a year ago. And my background is marketing, business. It's not IT, so I've kind of learned the technology as I went over the last 2-3 years. Loving it. I work by myself, for myself, which is great. Locally in the UK. Yeah. And generally having a whale of a time.
Fantastic. I like that. Now, how do you say your website name? Is it EHA?
Well, do you know, that's my copywriter wife came up with the EHA, but she had put a hyphen between the E and the HA. And the whole thing was around EHA sounding like yeehaw, people work with me, yeehaw, they're very happy. But this was a lesson in one should listen to one's wife, because I dropped the hyphen because I didn't like it. And nobody gets it. In fact, I've got a good friend of mine who's a French campsite owner. I've done his website. And whenever he talks about my business, he refers to it as web design. So I should have listened to her, but too late now. I've got the domain, so it's EHA web design.
Cool. So so anyone in the Chilterns area, isn't it? I never know what is actually classed as the Chilterns, or Bedfordshire, isn't it?
It's kind of the three beds, hearts, beds, and bucks for the Brits listening to this. Kind of the junction of the three.
And if you're outside, it's kind of northwest of London, isn't it?
That's it.
So, shall we take a look at the site that we're stripping down today?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me bring it up. I'm already logged in, so we can dive into the back end if we need to.
Okay, brilliant. Well, let's take a look at the front here. And, you know, I've been looking at this, and it is absolutely beautiful. So, do you want to tell us a few basics about the site? And you can just flick around the tabs so folks can see the whole site as you're doing it. And, bit about the client. So,
okay, this is a site for a local, it's a new business, a new startup, a gin distillery in the Chilterns. Lovely business, fantastic gin, lovely people. And it's actually the lady who owns the business with her husband is a graphic designer by trade. That's her main business, or that was until now. And I've developed a couple of sites for her, kind of reasonably simple sites using Beaver Builder. She put up a site using Adobe Muse to start with, and there was the simple one-page site, and she was going to redesign it herself, but she was really starting to struggle with responsiveness with Muse. It can be a bit of a nightmare. So we kind of chatted together, and I said, well, look, why don't I help you? So we, come up with a good rate, and I got started. And actually, the product grew. And it was funny. Actually, she by own admission became the clients she hates, because it took quite a while to get the content and get everything done. And I think it's really no fault of her own. It's simply that the business was changing. Lots to do, lots of gin to distill, and needs arose. But it was all all very friendly, and it all went very well. So the basic function of the site is obviously to advertise the business, but it's also meant to, they have two main streams to the business. Where the mainstream is obviously distilling gin and selling it.
Yes.
They wanted an online store because they're based in a local farm shop at the moment. They've got a unit in the farm shop where they distill. But of course, they're only open 2 days a week, so for convenience for customers, the ability to buy online is quite important. And they've had a lot of good reviews in the national press, so they needed to have a presence. And the other thing they do is events which is they do pop-up restaurants, they do stargazing with gin, quite innovative events. So that's quite cool actually. And when we were chatting, her plan was to use the blog to advertise news and events together, and that's when we kind of had a chat and went, look, actually there's probably a better way to do this is to have a dedicated event, plug in an event page.
Yes.
So I don't know where you want me to start, but I'll probably start with some of the features. Actually, I might even start with the the homepage is pretty simple. This is all. I can't. It is a beautiful site, but I'm afraid I can't take credit for the design because that is her design.
Yes,
and the way her and I tend to work is she'll give me the design, colors, fonts, and some Illustrator files. And then as we develop the site, some of the other pages like contact and the sidebars, I will normally then just work up myself, following pretty much our guidelines, and we'll come to a conclusion that way. Interesting thing on the homepage, there are a couple of challenges. Having we've got a graphic here, for instance. This isn't a font. The distillery shop is actually a graphic.
Yes.
We've got another graphic if I flick down to the bottom of the page with those arrows and those tickets, and those can be really tricky. And in fact, if I pop into can I pop into the page builder?
Right? Please. Yes.
If I pop into the builder, you'll see that actually what we've had to do. It's not the first time I use it. Thank you very much. You've actually had to create different modules. So each of those rows is actually one row per device size. Because we've had to have a different graphic for mobiles because it just wasn't working. So this is text.
Yes.
But this is an image. And because we're using an image, that can be really tricky. So we're playing with different size image, different size margins and paddings to make it look right across devices. Otherwise, on some, particularly the halfway points, when you start to get to iPad, and suddenly your distillery shop becomes tiny. So we've had to do that, and I've had to do the same round at the tickets. So this is where you've got these weird 3 tickets. So that's a bit of time. And the other thing that I found a bit tricky was that these arrows here, they're graphics that Kate produced. But again, if you don't get them at exactly the right size, we tried many sizes, they will pixelize on iPhones or Retina displays.
Yes.
So we ended up with, and the trick here was just to, she produced 4 or 5 versions, and eventually we found one that would work across all devices. So that's, and they're not huge challenges, but they're quite useful. The other thing that was which was quite cool is I've got a global row here for the footer, so I've switched the footer off from the side. And I've used a little piece of code from Grant Ambrose.
Yes.
Which, following his code, this was before Beaver Thema was released, and now obviously I would use Beaver Thema probably, but I've got this global row here that she can edit, and then I'm hooking that row into all of the pages of the site using his code, and it's literally half a dozen lines of code in the function PHP file. So that works quite well and makes it easy for her to update it. That's one of the things I found with Beaver Builder is one of the things that some of my clients had difficulty with is when it comes to editing widgets in footers and such. So as a rule, I prefer to use a row and either replicate the row or hook it, and it's much easier for them to then go and edit. So
that was really, I saw that one of Grant's, and that code, I'll share it as well so people can see it. But doesn't that code work where you're inserting a safe template into the whole of the site, aren't you? But it's the front page is not output into it. That's where you keep the global row, and you can change it from the front. Yes,
I think that's a really cute way to do it actually, because then as far as the client's concerned, they just know that they go to the home page, they edit the footer and the home page, and then that's it. Everything is taken care of.
Brilliant. Yeah,
so
I like that.
The other thing we've done on the newsletter, we haven't got a pop-up, we haven't got an inbuilt newsletter. In fact, it actually goes straight to a MailChimp sign-up page. The reason for that is this, she wants quite a lot of details, which wouldn't play very well in a pop-up.
Yes.
So she's capturing a lot. So actually, that's another way to do MailChimp. You don't always have to integrate in the site to do a pop-up. You can simply link, and this one will link to her sign-up form.
Yes.
So that's that's that really. I mean, that's pretty much. I mean, there was lots of bits and pieces. Let me just discard and go back to the front end. That's it. So yeah. So I think the more interesting or the interesting things is probably the events and the shop pages and the cocktails. So for basically beyond the standard kind of WordPress setup, I've got custom post types for cocktails. So if I go to my cocktails here, this is using the post grid from Beaver Builder. This is all Beaver Builder. There's no UAVB or anything like that. This is all pure Beaver Builder. And I'm just pulling in a custom post type, which I created with CPT UI. There's no custom fields or anything. It's pretty simple. If I go to one of the cocktails, and then this is just a template that she can then apply. I've saved it as a template, so we can then apply that for new cocktails. The one thing I learned actually with this is we initially started with I wanted to have the two columns the same size, so I had that set as a background, and then with column matching and height. The reason that it looks a little bit different here is because on some of the cocktails, and if I go to more cocktails, if I go to a shorter one, you'll see the text is a lot shorter, and from a graphic standpoint, the client wasn't happy to have a lot of dark brown showing. But one of the things that I found is when you try to have a background on a column, of course, when you go to mobile views and portrait on iPad, unless you start to add all sorts of padding, you start to have problems because the image doesn't show in full. So in the end, it may not be the most elegant solution, but what I ended up doing is using a large image like this as a background to the column, and then for mobiles, I added an actual image module and had it to display for mobile only, and that gave us a nice full image on mobiles. And you're loading the image twice, but the site is fast enough that it can put up with it. But that was a little trick that I ended up learning and discussing with the very helpful Beaver Builder support team. I have to admit, I contacted them. I may have contacted them a few times about that site.
So when the client's dealing with the custom post type they've got here, are they editing from the front end?
What they will do, I mean, at the moment she hasn't had the need to do it, but what they will do, I mean, she's a client who's reasonably savvy, so she's editing her content with a cut-down version of Beaver Builder, so with just an editor mode, so I've switched everything off. But I would have no problem giving her admin access, and with admin access, you'd simply go and create a new cocktail, because it says on the if I go to the dashboard, she will have here my cocktails. So she would go add new, and then if I obviously switch back on, if I lift the restrictions for Beaver Builder, she would add new, and then she would just go to the templates. And what I've done is I've switched all of the default templates and just kept all our own templates, and she would just go cocktail template and then start typing up the text.
Oh, cool. Actually, a lot of people have talked about this, and whether, I've done that for a client where they've gone to get a template, rather than put their content in the back end and connect that up. And,
that's the way I tend to work, because my background isn't WordPress and custom post types and custom fields. In fact, I've not really worked that much. I've not really worked with ACF before, and I'm going to now with Thema. So my reflex is kind of front end rather than back end. So, for something like this, if she was to put a new cocktail, well, we can try it because it's a live site. But if she was to put my cocktail and activate the page builder, she would simply, one would hope, go, there you go. And I've got a bunch of things here. And where is the cocktail? Campfire cocktail page. I would just do that, and you would hope that would ring. That's it. So that would just be a cocktail. She'd just go and type up, change the image, save it, and job done. And for clients so far, I find that more intuitive than maybe using custom fields in the back end. But that's just the way I work, and that's just the way I'm used to it. So it's a personal observation rather than.
It's been talked about a lot, and I had two clients that I set up these templates for their blog posts, and with one, it really worked well, and for the other one, it didn't, because they had experience of using WordPress before.
Right.
And they kept going into the back end and forgetting they had a template. So they got big.
I think for what I'm finding in my experience, most of my customer target are people that have very little or no technical knowledge and just need someone they can trust who's going to sort it out for them. So they often have never used WordPress, never used CMS, don't really want to use it. And so I find this kind of front-end approach a much easier approach for them. Even I've got another site I'm building now, and she wants to put like kind of new arrivals for new products. It's not an e-commerce site; it's actually a reclamation center. And I'm just going to build little not call to actions, the other one, call out with an image, a bit of text, and I'll just show you how it works. And I'll just say, look, just open that page, go into call out, change the image, change the text, save, and done at the front end.
Cool, I like that. Hey, there's something I meant to ask you earlier, just working with a graphic designer, and a really, clearly very talented graphic designer, but did she give you any sort of brief or any shots of mobile responsive views, or was it something that really never crossed her mind?
It's no, it's not. Well, it does cross her mind. The way I tend to work with her is and I think as many graphic designers do, is it start with the desktop view, and I think there's a point at which one's going to have to start with a mobile view, frankly, because this site I think is getting about 50-60% mobile. So what we tend to do is start with a desktop view. She has got the mobile view in mind, but it's more, I find it's more, not an afterthought, but it's more something that we take care of. Once we're happy with the desktop, let's just look at the way it looks on iPad and mobiles and then tweak it.
Yes.
To make it work. So that's when we had the issue with these things, because they didn't work on mobiles as well.
Yeah. Is there any content that gets lost on a mobile view? Because there is a school of thought that starts with the mobile first. They slim everything down to the essentials that are needed on the site, and when they build up to the desktop, I don't think many people do this, to be honest, but the idea is that you then add on the extra bits that you wouldn't be able to include on a mobile view. Is there anything that disappears on a mobile view?
No, not on this site, I think, because it's small enough. I think it's an interesting point. I think on some sites you probably would need to, but I find that approach tricky, because if you say, well, we're going to have a stripped down version for mobile and we'll work our way up to desktop, well, within a couple of years, you're going to end up with strip sites, because most people are going to view them on mobiles anyway.
Yes.
So I tend to approach it, I mean, for sites I design myself, I tend to approach it with what is the information that we must have for user experience, and whatever information we must present, let's present it on both desktop and mobile. But you're right, if there's a list of products, for instance, I might cut that down on mobiles, or I might cut down the footer. Mobiles, that kind of stuff, but normally it's pretty similar.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously spent a fair bit of money on the images. They're all custom, aren't they?
They're all. She shot them herself. Well, she shot them herself. She's got a photographer that's helping them as part of the crowdfunding. She's got a photographer friend, I think, who's helping. So some of those are professionally shot.
Brilliant.
But either by themselves or by a friend of the business.
Do you want to show us your plugins? Is that possible?
Yes, of course. I can show you that. I'll go to the dashboard.
Everyone loves to see everybody else's plugins.
Well, there's a few on this one. There's not. I don't tend to have masses. So it's taking a bit of time to respond there. So what I've got here, I've got obviously I've got my two go-tos. One is Backup Buddy, and the other one is WordFence. WordFence being the first thing I install on every site and configure. Then obviously Beaver Builder Pro, custom post.ui for the cocktails, forms, because we've got a number of forms, and I'll show you in a second the events and how I'm using forms with events. That's it's on SiteGround, so this is a SiteGround plugin. Events Calendar and Calendar Pro. There is a license. It's not out of installs. It's because it's a one-site license, and this is on a demo site, so the license is not on the main site. For anybody at the event calendars thinks I'm using their plugin without paying for my license. I'm not. I've got a Draft Plus. This was just as a backup of a backup, because I'm paranoid. And then WooCommerce, we're using Stripe for payment. It's actually, I mean, there's a lot to the site, but it's actually a fairly reasonable, a fairly simple plugin setup. I don't usually use a lot of plugins.
Yeah, that's really low compared to mine, and there's a lot of similarity as well. Do you know what? Can I talk about? You could show me the events, but I'm quite interested in the events calendar myself, because I don't. Have you used events calendar before?
Yes, I've used it on a couple of. I've got it on my wife's site, just the free version, and I did a site a while back for a sports competition bookings, and there I was using Events Calendar Pro with events ticketing, selling events through WooCommerce for Events Calendar. It's a very, very good plugin.
Yes.
It works very well. The support is very good. The only thing I would say about them is when they do major updates, particularly if you're using the free version or the pro because you want a few more views, it's all fine. If you've got events ticketing and a lot of interlinked things, you just need to be a little bit careful, a bit like WooCommerce. You know, you need to test your updates so it doesn't break things. But that's probably because, you know, you're talking about something that's actually quite complex.
Yes.
In what it does. But yeah, no, so it's a great plugin.
Well, do you know, that's one thought that crossed my mind when I was looking at that. You've got a fairly hefty event plugin, and you've also got WooCommerce as well. And did you say it's on SiteGround, or is this just the test?
Yeah, it's on SiteGround. It's on a GoGeek plan on SiteGround.
And it is handling those quite well, is it?
Yeah, no, it flies. I mean, it's on PHP 7. It's all cached, and I mean, this is one of the things I found since I switched to Beaver Builder. Is my sites are going just so much faster. I have to admit that I may have been at some point a Theme Forest user. I know, blasphemy over, but
we've all been one.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you know, the site is just so much lighter. It's because I can just call what I need on the page. And you know, I'm finding even my own site loads in less than a second. With that, I mean, I'm not using Super Cacher or any of that stuff. I just rely on SiteGround, and you know, I have to say, SiteGround for shared hosting is super quick. Yeah.
That's great. Do you know what? I mean, I was on SiteGround for a long time. I haven't got my own sites now on it, but I just used to use WP Rocket, and I never bothered with their own caching. But you know, I'm just now learning that it really is excellent.
Yeah, I think it's come on. They've come on a lot in the last probably the last year or so. They've really come on, and you know, the way they handle the caching and HTTPS and PHP 7 through a single plugin is fantastic. In fact, I might do a little video about that one day.
Yeah, you should.
Okay, do you want to quickly look at events? I'm concerned that I'm probably rattling on it for ages.
No, it's fine.
Do you want to look at events quickly?
Yeah, let's have a look at everything you can show us.
Okay, so that's the events. That's the events page. What I've got here, a couple of things. What I've got in the sidebar, I've also got the. I'll show you the shop, but one of the things that's not showing here is it's the basket. It would show if you had something in the basket, in the shopping basket.
Yes.
So this is using, there's only 3 on this because this is a development site. On the live site, there's a few more events. So this is all pulled in. So the events calendar basically gives you a number of views if you use Pro. You can view by, you can have a calendar, you can have a list, you can have venues, you can have all sorts of things. This is kind of called a photo view because it looks prettier. The only problem with the photo view, it's weird. It orders it depending on the size of the box here, so it doesn't actually order it exactly by date. So that's one of the weaknesses, but other than that, it's perfect. So it will generate. This is all generated by the plugin. And then if I click through, so this is a pop-up restaurant, for instance. So if you click through, and this is using, because the Beaver Builder is not integrating Events Calendar Pro. By not integrating, I mean they've not done anything. Unlike some other themes, will have actually created their own views as a theme I used to use called Unfold, and that's kind of creating different views. So this is how it comes from the plugin. Obviously, there's a reasonable amount of CSS here to make it look the way I want it to, but I've not changed the layout of a typical event. Okay. So you'll get, you know, your title, time and date, price if there's a price,
yes.
Next event, previous event, image, text. Here we're linking to an external booking service for some events. There's a quick add to your calendar, export to iCal, and then you've got details of the event repeated here. And because it's effectively it's a custom post type, so you have categories for events. You can have venues, and the nice thing about the venue is when you click through the venue, you'll also see the events happening at that venue. So if you've got several venues, you'll see the events. I'll show you this in a second. This is where the Pro version comes in. So all this is available on free. I mean, everything here.
Really?
You could do with a free plugin. Yeah. This is all from the free plugin. The photo view is you need Pro, and some of the more some of the views you would need Pro for. That's why we got it. And also you can have your own custom fields. So here under other, you can add, and this is really useful if you. I don't know if an event that is doing catering, do we go to catering? Yes, no, or anything like. So here, obviously, it's over 18s only. But some events they will be like at a country show, so there'll be no age restriction. So we use this for those. Then it will automatically pull in related events from the category.
Yes.
And so if you go to Puddingstone Distillery as a venue, the venue's created in the background, so that venue then shows you upcoming events at the venue. So that's, this is again all free, and then it will give you, you know, the location of the venue and whatever events are coming up.
Yes.
And then it comes with a couple of, it comes with a few widgets. This is one of the widgets. This required, I mean, I had to do a fair bit of, I had to do a bit of CSS to get that to fit in, because when you go to mobile, the month was overlapping. But this is all from the plugin. I think this may be from the pro version of that particular view.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I go back to the main events page, and then if you take that stargazing and cocktail, here what we've done is we've actually, because what you can do with the free version of Events Calendar, you can have an RSVP, and that's part of the free plugin. But RSVP for us wasn't that useful, because people say, well, yeah, we'll attend, but they may or may not turn up, so we want a bit more detail. If you can actually sell tickets, and manage your stock of tickets and all that, and do check-in when people come to the event, but that requires another little plugin from Modern Tribe, which is the event ticketing. But that one, so for that one, because we needed contact, which simply added, this is a shortcode to a contact form, formidable form.
Yes.
And then the business will contact them after that to get more details that this is not showing, because again, the reCAPTCHA is active on the live site, not this one.
Yes.
And then same thing, details, venue, blah blah. So that's pretty much it. It's quite nice actually. I think I'm just flicking over to the live site now, just to show you the what's on it now, because there's a bit more. There's a few more events. So you've got the Hearts County Show, for instance, in May. So if I click on this, and having said that, SiteGrind is fast. It's that's my computer. And then, okay, so this is the Hearts County Show. And you see, it's a free event because it's a county show. So it's not an event that you pay the distillery for. So there's no price showing because we've not set a price. And then here you've got the details of the event. Again, she's tagged it. And then you've got the organizer, which is another. And the nice thing on this meta box, you've got details, organizers, other, and venue. But if you don't put any data, you just won't show it. So you can manage whether you want a map, whether you want these to show. So and then you have a link to the organizer. So it's a pretty comprehensive plugin, I have to say. I've been very happy with it. The only thing, and this is something, I mean, I was talking to Ben actually in the support team for Beaver Builder, because it's not integrated. What happens is it will pick up some of the CSS, so it will pick up those links, for instance.
Yes.
And it will pick up some of those H titles from the theme. But weird things happens if you start to change the screen size to that. When you get to the mobile responsive, this goes back to a grey background with white text, because that is the default from the thing. So because it's not integrated, I just had to add a little media query to change it.
Yes.
So when we were talking about Thema and integrating other plugins, if Thema could allow us to integrate something like the events calendar, that would be magic. Actually, I mean, there's a few. There's Event Espresso. There's a few, but reading all the reviews and testing a few things, I found that for me that was the most comprehensive one to use.
Yes, there's a very simple one. One of Pippin's plugins, one that was, I think it's Sugar Calendar or something, that did sort of events. But the only thing that was really nice about it is it's very limited in what it can do, but it's very sort of lightweight and very minimal on CSS, so it takes most of what the theme offers, and you can style a lot without adding too much CSS. But it's the only one I have experience with, so I'm fascinated by these bigger, well-known plugins because I haven't yet used them.
Well, actually, this one has this one in the back end. Actually, I don't know if I can show you this, but you can. I'm taking a risk here because I'm trying to go somewhere and need to remember exactly where it is. So you might bear with me. But if I go to where's my events? Okay, if I go to my event settings. You will, on the display, I'm pretty sure, this is quite useful. It will actually either go in skeleton mode, so it really just has enough CSS, or it will try to grab from the theme, or it will use their own style. So you can actually, and depending what you click, you will get a different amount of CSS loaded up. So it depends how much. What I would advise somebody who's using this is just try it, see what it looks like. And this is how much CSS you need to make. For Beaver Builder, this setting seems to work pretty well, and you just need to adjust a few things with a few media queries, but it's no big change.
Yes. Oh, okay, great. I mean, I saw actually that your custom CSS, there was quite a lot added, so you did quite a bit of work. But you use, I saw you left a note for me saying that you use CSS Hero just to.
I did. I mean, some of it I did manually. Some of it is because because sometimes I'm finding it a little bit tough to identify exactly which class I need to target.
Yes.
So I find CSS Hero is quite useful for that and kind of see the result instantly. But what I always do if I use CSS Hero is I will do that, and then I will then copy paste the generated CSS somewhere else.
Yes.
Delete the history. It's really if somebody uses CSS Hero, well, you know this obviously, but it's really important to delete before you deactivate the plugin. Delete the change history because it will stick in the database.
Right.
So yes. I delete everything, get rid of the plugin, and put it all in the style sheet. But yeah, as a shortcut, I found it quite useful just to identify those bits. There was a lot I needed to do a lot on the shop, for instance.
Yes.
We are pulling in these are custom fonts from an external provider, and that worked fine through the shop. But a lot of I had to do a lot of CSS for some of the spacing here for some of the titles because it was basically not picking up the stuff on the theme. It was actually, so that's where CSS Hero was useful because as I went through every product, it allowed me to target all of the little bits and pieces or find them.
Great. Yes. No, I just wondered on your experience because everybody's talking about which is the best of these CSS editors, and this is obviously one of the prime ones. But you're like most people who know their way around CSS. You just use it as a tool to help you speed up getting selectors, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well, I know CSS not enough to just start typing and knowing exactly what it's going to produce. I'm not at that stage yet, but I know enough that if I see it, I go, okay, I understand I think I understand what's happening. But so for me, I don't think I would use a CSS editor to kind of do a whole site, but it's as a shortcut, it's quite handy. So I've tried that. I tried microthema, but I couldn't really get on with it.
Yeah, me too. The only problem I found with CSS Hero is that it wasn't always giving me the right selectors, but this is like over a year ago, I think, when I tried it out, and I was struggling. But you managed to find selectors to do for the
it does now. You can. It's actually quite easy once you know your way around it. It's actually quite easy. There's a little button. I think this is probably a newish feature. You can literally select between not only hover states and all the different states and the different device sizes. So it's quite handy. And I mean, what it will do, of course, it will write the CSS longhand, so some of it you need to regroup. But at least it gives you the bones of it. Copy it to a text editor and then tweak it. And job done.
Yeah, cool. I also saw I was talking about this yesterday because of the little video. I noticed that on your single displays here, it's got version 3 as updated. So if you hover over your image your featured image, that's new, isn't it? Yeah,
that's new, and it's the reason I haven't updated. I've got it updated here. I think I'm waiting for 1.6. This is using the code from the support from support actually, just to make it work until the theme comes out. Because I'm not sure what the theme is going to do, but I know that for instance, where I've got this is using that code. I'm not sure what the theme will do, but these are quite close to each other.
Yes.
But at the moment, I've just left it. So this is updated. This is WooCommerce 3.06 with kind of the temporary code added functions, and then I'm just waiting for 1.6. And I've got apparently there's a great video out there on a preview of 1.6 by a certain David Waumsley, which is next on my watch. So I'll be watching that.
Yeah, I was just mentioning this. That WooCommerce update to version 3, it also changed all of the product titles from header 3s to header 2. So I wondered if that thrown out your design at all.
It hasn't actually. It hasn't thrown out. It may be because I've got this all. It's no, I should admit that I've looked at this thoroughly and I know exactly what I'm talking about. But no, I hadn't realised. But as it looks pretty much the way it should, I wasn't too worried.
Yeah, you've nailed it down beforehand.
Exactly. No, I'm right on top of this, baby.
Yeah. Okay, do you know what? I had a list of questions and I've just been chatting to you, so I have no idea what we've covered and what we haven't. So we talked about functionality. Actually, I really just wanted to ask you a little bit about, I guess, what's been difficult or what's been most interesting. What have you learned the most from this project? Or what's been the most difficult thing to do?
I think from this project, like many actually, when I work with Kate, and I should give her a quote. This is Kate at kmdesign.co.
Yes.
Just giving her a little plug. She's a really nice person to work with, very good designer, with a very, very good eye for detail, but also one of those people who's quite understanding. So, if we can't do something, or if we can't do it exactly the way she wants, provided I can find another way to do it, we usually come to a solution. And one of for me, I design and build myself, or I will only for her develop, because I only develop for nice people, and she's a nice person.
Yes.
But what is really useful for me, designing for someone else, building for someone else, it requires me to kind of go further with CSS or with solutions that I might not do if I was doing it myself. Because when you design for yourself, when you build for yourself, you kind of achieve what you want, but you don't necessarily stretch it. So that I find that really useful. Working with a designer like this, that's been excellent for me. The little things that we've had problems. Well, there's not really been too many problems. I think it was we had to find a way around shipping costs for WooCommerce, but did that with putting a little multiplier formula. So every bottle is £6.50 for a bottle shipping, and then I'm adding £2 a bottle for quantities above that. So that kind of works. So we worked our way around it. Had a few problems with forms and emails coming through, but I think that's resolved itself now. So other than that, it's been pretty useful. But I think I must say this kind of, for me, for my business, this kind of development for this kind of site, there is absolutely no way I could do this without something like Beaver Builder. Because I've done sites before, when I was using ThemeForest on things which I thought were pretty simple to use, but you end up having to figure out the logic of a theme and bending it so much, so you spend hours wasting your time. So this with the theme coming up has meant that people like me, who I can copy paste a snippet of PHP and broadly understand what it does, but I would never pretend to be a developer, hardcore developer. So that's really allowing me to do this. I don't think I would have been able to take something like that on without a tool like Beaver Builder.
Yes. Well, I'm very similar to you, really. A lot of us are, aren't we? And it's just, really bridged the gap for us. Hey, there was one thing I wanted to ask you about, because you were asking about this in the Beaver Builder Facebook group. Did you come up at all with a solution for your age verification? I think you're looking for that for this site.
I've got a couple of solutions. I mean, they're we haven't implemented them yet because it's actually, they're premium. There's a premium option out there that looks quite good. I can't offhand. I'd have to give you the notes. I can't offhand remember the name of the site, but we haven't implemented yet. It was one of those things that we launched the site, and then the client asked me a couple of questions, and all those questions it was about cookie consent, it was about age verification, it was about, we had a few problems with emails. It just they were in the same week very complicated questions to which I get I did a bit of research and gave inevitably were slightly complicated answers, and we both agreed that we both have a headache, we'll come back to it next week. So I think it's something for next week. But there's a couple of options. There's not many out there actually, but there is an option. There's a premium option that we may use. But what we may end up doing, because I don't think it's if it's not an actual legal requirement, if it's something that is useful to have, I think it's a useful thing to have. What we may end up doing, particularly when we go to the shop, as a measure, is we may just appear. And again, with Beaver Thema, I could do that. In fact, I might actually activate Thema on this site, because obviously I've already bought it. I would probably put a note here. Or we may even add a note at the top of the site, or somewhere permanently, rather than have a pop-up. Because I also find that edge verification, all this kind of stuff, if you don't absolutely have to, you're going to lose some users, because I don't think I would put my date of birth on a website just to go and have a look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that what you need to do, or is it just a click?
The guidelines are that you're supposed to ask people to put their date of birth as a verification, which, is a little bit like cookie consent. You can ask them to accept cookies, but they're never going to go and read the cookie policy, and people just click because they want to get to the site. So with age verification, you could put any old birth date in there, and it would work. So I think it's, but I see it as a bit of a barrier. But it needs to be done carefully, because I think you need to do it with JavaScript, because what I don't want to do, the simple way would be to replace the home page with an edge verification page. Yes. But it's kind of then losing all of the potential SEO of the home page. So,
we got. Oh yes, it's a really bad idea, I think, for SEO. That yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we'll end up putting a notice here, for instance, we've got a notice in the terms and conditions of the shop, so it's clearly marked in the T's and C's of the shop. You cannot buy if you're under 18. So we'll, I mean, that, you know, the client's looking into this, and when she comes to a conclusion, then we'll implement what we need to implement. But we are, you know, I believe she's meeting the requirements by having, you know, clear notification in the terms and conditions that this is for over 18s, and that all the tours are and the events are over 18s only.
I think, you know, with the European cookie law as well, in the UK, it's pretty much been dropped, hasn't it? I think it's there, but they say that they don't have any dedicated staff to look after it, and they're only going to be looking at the top 200 sites in the UK, you know, to see if they're applying something. So, you know, I think it's kind of died off because it's not very, you know, practical, really.
And you know what? If this distillery site becomes one of the top 200 sites in the UK, I'll be very glad to have that.
Indeed. I think, have I missed anything off? Because, as I say, I've been staring at your screen here and not looking at any questions, but I think we've probably covered everything we wanted to.
Yeah, I think we have. I think, I don't know how long we've been chatting for, but at 54 minutes, I think by that time, most people are either asleep or have just closed their screens. So it's probably just you and I talking to each other now, actually.
Probably. Okay, so we've got to find a way out of this first episode. So I guess I just have to thank you for helping me to come up with the concept of doing these kind of videos, and for being the first victim of it. I just can't thank you enough. It's been wonderful.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to speak to you at last, and I hope, you know, if one person finds it useful, then it was time well spent.
Indeed. Oh, so we better say goodbye then. So it's bye-bye from me, David Waumsley, and
it's bye-bye from me, Hugues Audouard.
Bye-bye.